Hello, today we're going to look in our Alma 2 and 2 class at vendors and vendor accounts in Alma. I have logged in as Kathy Owen, my acquisitions librarian, and from the Alma menu we're going to go down and access the vendor file. There is no limit to the number of vendor records that can be stored in Alma. We can see that we have the option of defining if a vendor is active or not. We see displayed on the screen the vendor code, the vendor name, and the libraries that are linked to this particular vendor record. I'm going to click on the vendor code of my national booksellers so that we can look at the vendor record in more details. We can see here that we have a number of tabs of information defining information relevant to a vendor record. At the bottom of the screen, we can see that we have the option of defining a general account for my institution, and we also have the option of defining library-specific accounts. If we move across the tabs, we can see that we support contact information. We have the option of being able to define address, phone numbers, email addresses, and web addresses. And there is no limit to the number of these types of information that we can store for a vendor record. I can just simply add another address by clicking on the Add Address button, and the same for the phone number, email, etc. On a separate tab, we can also store information about contact people. So if I normally communicate with a particular person at my vendor, I'm able to store this information in this tab. Alma, of course, supports EDI, and in this part of the vendor record, we are able to store all the information related to how we're going to communicate with our vendor, or how the vendor will communicate with us via the EDI information. So we can input the EDI code, we can define whether this is relevant for invoices and for purchase orders, or one or the other. We can define the EDI type, the naming convention, and how often we want EDI to run. We can also at any point just come in and say, I want to run a particular EDI job. So rather than waiting for it to be run if it's on a daily basis, I can click on this button to activate it automatically. And here we can see various other details related to managing the EDI function for a vendor. If we move on to the next tab, we can see that this is a tab that links all the invoices that I have for a particular vendor to my vendor record. So in a very simple manner, I can just come to my vendor record, click on the Invoices tab to see all this information. We can see that the invoice number is hypertext linked, so if I want to access my particular invoice in order to see more detail about it, I can do so. We can also see the number of line items that are linked to a particular invoice, and we can see the status of the invoice in this particular column. If it has a status of in review, then I'm able to edit it. If it has a status of ready to be paid, then I can only view the details. We have an attachments tab here. If there's any kind of an attachment that I would like to link to my vendor record, I can do so. Automatically, when I send an order to a vendor, the order letter that goes to the vendor will be attached to my vendor record. Once again, this is very useful to have this information collected together in one place. It happens automatically. I don't have to do anything in order to manage it. We also have a communications tab. If I have a claim that is generated that is going to my vendor, Alma will once again put the order claim information here as part of the communications tab information, but I can also start a manual communication to the vendor. So for example, I have a communication about packaging. I sent an email to the vendor saying that we're not very happy with the packaging of some of their recent shipments. We can see that the vendor responded saying that he's very sorry, they had some trouble with new staff, and I can see this information. I can see historical information. If I need to attach some kind of an email or letter that I received from the vendor, I can do so, and if I want to start a new communication with the vendor, I can do so as well. So this concludes our summary and overview information about vendors in Alma.